Well, I've changed the electrolytic capacitors, and I had to change one of the paper wax capacitors because it was just kind of convenient to do it right then because the wires are in the way. And I'm gonna flip this up so you can see. And I put the tubes back in it too. I almost forgot to film turning it on the first time. So we'll telescope in here a little bit, see if we can see a little bit better what I've done. I disconnected the multi-sectional, and two leads went over to a common here, and one of them, that box obviously was grounded up over here on the chassis. The other one was here, the other end of it. So what I've done is I put the electrolytics, I just eliminated one of the wires. This was the bigger wire of the two, so I ran it over here to the terminal strip I mounted on the mounting nut of the multi-sectional electrolytic, the original can one. And this was that other paper filter was, or paper capacitor was here, and it was kind of in the way, and this kind of covered up where I needed to get to change it, so I just went ahead and changed it. And I'm one of the guys that likes to desolder things. I like to actually desolder it and then put the new component and wrap it around, you know, make a good connection. Like if you went and looked at this, you would say, oh, you'd have a hard time telling somebody had changed that part other than it's a new piece, right? We're gonna flip it over and we're gonna see how it does here with just those three changed. I haven't done anything else. I haven't cleaned any of the volume pot or the tuning condenser, so there could be a bunch of dirt in here causing problems. I have not turned it on yet either, so we'll turn it on here. Make sure that's turned down all the way. Let's flip this. All right. So let's see if we can. I'm gonna move the camera over so you can't. So I'm gonna try and get the power in there at the same time. If I'll be able to. Maybe I'll have to raise up the camera a little bit. Maybe raise up the camera a little bit there. Yeah. I had the signal tracer out trying to find the foil end of the new capacitors. Matter of fact, I'll just get that out of the way. It looks like it's going to be in the shot, kind of blocking the view there for you. I know they say I've done some reading, and they're saying it doesn't matter on these new capacitors, but these old ones, they marked them for a reason. And if that signal tracer can tell the difference, then RF can tell the difference. I'm sure it'll make a difference. It may not. You may not be able to hear it, but I just feel that's the way to do it. Okay, so I'm gonna probably raise the camera up just a little bit more so you can get that in the background a little better. Okay, we'll put the dim bulb testers on bulbs, and we'll have it on one bulb. Make sure we're on one bulb. We'll turn the variac on. We'll shut this off so... Oh no, we'll leave it on. Maybe you can't see it. And I'll start turning this up. Yeah, it's got to come up quite a bit here. So there's 0.13 at about 50 volts. We'll take her up to 60. Okay, 60 volts, about 62, whatever. 0.14 amps. 8.6 watts. And the light bulb's coming on. I did not change that light bulb. That's the original bulb that came with this radio. I was told this radio is non-functioning. So looks like it's gonna work. Just that the light's on, that's a really good sign to me. Let's bring her on up to 0.16, 0.17, Alright, there's 80 volts. Let's let that sit there for a minute at 80 volts. I hear some popping out of the speaker. I hear voices. Now, I did not tune that. That's just where I had it from messing around. What a coinkydink, huh?
For making all those sandwiches for people in need. Thanks for
no way.
And for spending your weekends cleaning up.
This radio works.
Thanks for providing shelter for homeless kids and families. At Propel, we want.
No, I'm holding the antenna in my fingers. Well, the antenna wire anyway.
No matter how small, can make a world of difference. We want to help make sure.
And I don't want to run this for too long.
And there's no.
But let's go ahead and switch it over to 2 bulbs. That's going to increase the amperage. There's 109 volts, 106. Can you see that in there? Yeah, you can kind of see it. 0.25. It's drawing a quarter amp. 0.25. 25 watts. So it's not out of the realm of other radios that, you know, had similar situations that I've worked on, the other 3 or 4. Let's turn the voltage up a little bit more. Look at that.
All of you are the backbone of the electrical industry, and the decisions you make affect thousands of businesses, industries, and families. This come to make a
Well, that just goes away quick, doesn't it, right there at the end?
business manager for the next 3 years. Our local economy is strong.
And again, touching it lowers it for some reason.
Local 46 needs a leader who has
So when I touch it, it lowers the volume.
reaching memberships and a vision for all.
I think that has something to do with the isolation transformer.
His brother Sean Baxby.
Well, let's see what else we can pick up real quick before the radio dies. Before something burns out. It's a fairly sensitive radio. Especially with not having an alignment. It's all that noise.
Just about everywhere. You know, you were born in
Wow.
okay, you lived, I know you lived in Canada.
So I'm okay with this. I'm wondering if we ought to get the Arduino out and listen to the shadow on it, but that speaker, you know, it's got that big crack in the speaker, so we'll see. I'll make a decision here in a minute, but it would be kind of neat to listen to that on the original, all those old capacitors in there. All I changed were the electrolytics and that one because it was convenient. I think I might get the Arduino out and we'll listen to the shadow on this real quick. We'll see. I'll be back in a few. We'll see you in a few minutes. I've got the Arduino out. 3.5 millimeter jack is plugged into the computer just for the sound. I've got jumper wires. We've got our 10 microfarad electrolytic, 2 10K resistors, and this is the ground going to the Arduino. So that's going to be our ground off of our 3.5, and this is our actual audio, right? I guess this would be the common, and this is probably the right or left, I'm not sure. And then our antenna is hooked up here. It's just laying up over there. The antenna is just laying up over there. It's just that coil of wire that we used last time. This is hooked to a coil of wire. It's just hooked to a coil of wire. Laying next to the radio here. It's just laying next to the radio. And I will go and turn it. I will go and turn it on. And we'll start playing the clip. A little bit of distortion.
Oh no. What evil? Once again, your neighborhood blue coal dealer brings you
Blue coal, I just can't get over that.
The hard and relentless fight of one man against the forces of evil.
That's just too funny.
These dramatizations are designed to demonstrate
Blue coal.
old and young alike that crime does not pay.
Crime does not pay. I guess it depends on how good of a criminal you are.
For all the lucky householders whose homes are heated with hard coal.
Hard
These
coal.
homes are enjoying healthful warmth in every room. Even though winter winds blow,
Oh, this
there
is too
no
funny.
need to cut down heat.
Coal. A coal advertisement. Alright. I guess we'll change... I'm thinking we'll change capacitors one at a time, and then we'll come back and put it back on the Arduino and see how it does. See how the sound is. I guess leave a comment down below, you know, if you can tell a difference, or if you know, whatever. Leave a comment. Thanks. I thought I'd make a little short segment here on how I find the foil end using the signal tracer. Now, there's probably lots of videos out there about this, but this is how I do it. I use my signal tracer, and I put it on times 10. I don't know, when I turn this light on, you're not going to be able to see that eye now. But it's on times 10, and the speaker's off. I don't need to listen to it. And it, you know, none of the other settings. The gain, it helps to have the gain turned up. And then I've got a... I guess turn that light back on. I've just got a piece of coaxial to some alligator clips, no probe. So it's just the raw feed going in there. Now you see how it moves. It's so sensitive. All I'm doing is just touching the alligator clip with my hand. Now if I put a capacitor onto the alligator clip, and then if I put my hand on it, so all I've done is just hook the capacitor up to the alligator clip, and I'm going to use me for interference. And see how far that eye closed? See if we can see, if we can get closer to that maybe. Can we see a difference? I don't know if you can really see it. See how the eye opens? It's open all the way there, and then it closes up a little bit. That's me touching it. Okay, and then I'll flip it around. I'll keep in my head which end was the ground on, and then I'll put it on here the other way, and then the eye almost closes all the way. So I'll take a marker and I'll mark the end that the ground will, the ground, whichever. So now that this is hooked up, I'll put a mark on this end that the ground is in where the eye closes the least amount. Because the outside foil is going to be the shielding. So the closer the shielding is to the low impedance side, less interference is going to be on the high impedance side. So that's how I do it. We'll do one more here real quick. That was a 0.01. This next one is a 0.006. And I was amazed at the size difference between a 0.1 and a 0.006. 0.1, 0.01, 0.006. You figure the more capacitance, the bigger it would be. So we'll do the 0.006 here. I'll just hook it up. Okay, it's hitched up, and I'm touching it. So that is almost closed. That eye is almost closed all the way almost. So we'll flip it around. Huh, not much difference, was there? So we turn down the gain a little bit. Okay, the eye is a sliver. Wow, really not much difference on this one, is there? It's got to be how I have this set. I've always been able to tell the difference. There. Yeah, definitely. The eye is... And we'll flip it around the other way. Yeah, difference. So this is the low impedance side right here. This is the foil end on this one. Right here. I'll mark it real quick with the marker. I'll just put a dot on there. And that's how I do it. Sometimes you have to make adjustments, but I've always been able to make it tell. I've always been able to use that magic eye to tell me. I know I said I was going to replace one capacitor at a time and then see how it works, but I just felt moving those tubes in and out of these sockets is too many times is probably not a good thing. I don't want to loosen these sockets. They fit in there very nice, so I just replaced all the capacitors and said let's call it good. The old ones are over here, and I've got a way to check these, you know, but I've got a meter. We'll look at these here in a few minutes. But yeah, I've got these all changed, and I am a desolder guy. I like to desolder all the way and then get all of the old crap off. And this one here, there was somebody had, you know, just laid it next to it. They didn't even put a bin. They just laid it next to it and put a ball of solder on both ends of this. So it wasn't even really mechanically attached. And same thing up here. This one apparently had been changed. I don't know. There was an extra wire wrapped around this that somebody had clipped that was buried in the solder I took off. So I took my time, and I was I like to desolder, like I said, and I've got some the old braid, right? The old solder braid, desoldering braid, and I use the pump as much as I can. I don't have a Heiko desoldering gun, and I'm not going to spend the big money on that. I don't. If I was doing this for a living, yes, I would spend the money on the Heiko. But I think that Heiko gun probably couldn't get in here on some of these, you know, some of the angles, especially like here. You know, I mean, and the one behind here, I mean, I don't think that Heiko gun could get in there on that. Like I said, I'm a big desolder guy. I like to desolder and then make an actual mechanical connection and then solder. But where this one goes to the volume control, I did not like where it's at. It's so close to this and this other mica capacitor that I did not feel it was a good idea to desolder it. So I just cut it long enough, and I made the J-hook method connection right here. I'm not real big on this. It's good. So what I did is I slid some heat shrink up on there to the right length, and then I had this left over from other radios that I've redone, you know, taking the old capacitors out and putting this in here to slide over the top of that joint so it's covered. I don't know if it's necessary where it's at. Not like people are going to really be sticking their hands in here, but I'm not that bright, and I might touch that while it's on. So I just try to protect myself as much as I can. I like to get as close as I can here, but this one, I didn't plan right when I put this on here, but I'm okay with this. This is probably good enough. I mean, it's not worth redoing is what I'm getting at. I would like to have had it come down to in here somewhere, but you know, such is life, right? It's okay. How I make the J-hook, I've got a little pair of jeweler's pliers for making jewelry. These things work great for making the making the joint, I just line it up right on the end, so I use as much as possible, little as possible. And the further you go up on these, you see how these are tapered, the further you go up, the bigger the J-hook. So I just run it around in a circle as tight as I can, nice and tight. Just be careful, nice and tight. There. Makes a nice little hook. And you do the same thing on the component resistor or whatever you're putting in, and you can go a little bit further on this. You go just a little bit further on this. So I like to leave the opening just big enough so that the other one slips in here, and then once the other one's on here, and I see how I make the bend in this. So I'll bend this back a little bit, so before I put it on, it'll be sitting at an angle this way. So when I put it on the hook, when I hook the two together, this kind of acts like a spring. I'll slide it over, and this will already have like a hook on it that can go in there. So I just kind of flex it a little bit and drop it down in there, and then the tension of this bend kind of acts like a spring and holds this joint tight. Then I'll take the pair of needle nose pliers and I'll crush it. And then I'll crush the other one, you know, because it'll be at a different angle. I'll crush them together real nice and tight, solder it. And then I took this end and I bent it around, and it was sticking a little bit proud, so I cut it off with the flush cuts. With the flush cut pliers, get right in there on there and cut it flush, and then soldered it. So these little pliers, I recommend getting a pair of these little round needle nose pliers if you like to use the J-hook method. It makes making the J-hook so much easier. This makes it so much easier than, I mean, look at the size of this, right? They're so much smaller in diameter on the end. It's more precise in my opinion. I think you get a much tighter joint. I think you get a much tighter joint with these little pliers. And they're cheap too. You get them at the craft store. Get them at the craft store. Women, you know, whoever makes jewelry, right? At the craft store. They make, I'm sure they sell them on Amazon too. I don't know. But I got a set. It come with, I don't use these very much, but I use these all the time if I have to do J-hooks. I don't like to do J-hooks, but that's the way it is. And then there was one more capacitor up here to change up onto the I'm in the middle of working on the dial band right now. I had an idea and I had to see if it would work. The capacitor up here on the antenna, I used a safety capacitor because it does go to ground. I don't know how much voltage is sitting here, but I just didn't see anything, like I said, anything that goes to ground, I don't see any reason not to use a safety capacitor. I mean, if the antenna ever gets shocked, I'm sure it's going to burn out this coil before it gets to here, but still, I don't like the idea of it being connected to ground without a safety capacitor. I'm going to wait to put the tubes in it until after I get the dial band. I'm going to start working on the dial band next. So, I guess that's it for now until the capacitors are changed, and I don't want to put the tubes in there because I need to turn the radio on its side, and I'm going to be working on this in here a lot. So, appreciate you watching.